Damascus is a Catholic missionary movement that invites young people and their families into a life-changing encounter with Jesus and his church. And that's just where the adventure begins. This is the Damascus Podcast, where encounter meets mission. Nick Redd, Joe Masek, welcome to the Damascus Podcast.
Come on.
Good to be here.
Pumped to have you.
Let's go.
Yeah, I'm so excited.
I'm so present.
Yeah, me too.
No place
Yes.
I'd rather be.
Likewise. I'm super excited for the conversation.
Yeah.
Thanks for taking the time.
Yeah.
Being here at Seek. And well, we've known each other for a while. We might get into that while we're talking.
Yeah.
But the Freedom Group, Full Send. I like that a lot. You want to tell those listening a little bit about the Freedom Group? Maybe we can start there.
Yeah. Our primary interest is to get men free from pornography. We say often, pretty much vast majority of guys we talk to, if you asked any man on the street, what are the top 3 pain points in your life you'd like to be gone? Most guys will say some form of sexual issue is one of those top 3 pain points. But if you asked every guy, what are your top 3 dream outcomes for your life? Sexual issues wouldn't make the dream outcome. So we see it as a primary field for evangelization because you're trying to serve people's felt need. And guys know that this is an issue in their life. And like myself, struggling for 23 years, I wanted this out of my life since I was 12, 13 years old. And so it's personal for us, deeply personal for us, because we know what it's like to live in hell. And that helps us know what it feels like to be in heaven.
Yeah.
And to walk in the ways of God. And it's not just a moral issue. Every guy that we work with at least knows it's a sin, it knows it's a problem, and wishes it was out of their life. My background's in neuroscience, Nick's background's in exercise physiology, and so we take a real body, mind, spirit approach to helping a guy become fully alive. What does that actually look like to inhabit your masculine and your manhood?
Integrated men, huh?
Yeah, so that you can live with sexual integrity. And ultimately, it's about so much of probably what we'll talk about today. It's about learning to face discomfort as a teacher rather than an opponent. To learn how to live in suffering well.
Yeah.
Especially the suffering that resides in me: anxiety, overwhelm, boredom, stress, whatever it is. Because I want to be a resilient man. I want to be a man who can shoulder responsibility, and I think every man does.
Amen.
Shoulder heavy responsibility in life, build something awesome with his life. Something meaningful, something deep, something profound. And porn becomes a consistent and persistent escape, usually in hopelessness, in boredom, in selling out his purpose for pleasure. And, it's short-term pleasure for long-term pain versus short-term pain for long-term pleasure. And through building that life. And again, we first experienced that in our own life, and so now we spend all of our time, all day, every day, giving away that to other men through an intentional process of accompaniment in our freedom groups. Our freedom community is the big room for guys that want to, maybe not ready to go on that intensive process, but want some additional support in their life to be able to have it. And then we run a number of different events, retreats, to be able to help guys make meaningful progress in a shorter period of time. Our ultimate interest is to disrupt the porn industry by removing and liberating its users. We're not confident that legislature will get passed anytime soon to remove porn from the internet, because it's one of the biggest drivers of GDP in our country. The porn industry makes more money than NFL, the NHL, and the NBA combined.
Is that right?
Absolutely. So I don't think that's going away anytime soon, but if the Christian church stopped watching porn,
we could make a dent.
Yeah, I mean, everything on the internet is run by and monetized by attention. How many eyeballs and for how long those eyeballs stay on that thing is what gets paid more. Yeah. Right? That's how it works. And so if we could just remove the eyeballs of the Christian church, 60% overnight of porn would go away, because there'd be no more money left to fund it. And even though so much of that stuff is access for free to keep us there until novelty drives us into pain for a variety of different things, it's all getting paid for in one way or another through advertisement. So that's where we put our energy and effort. That's not because we don't have a hope for legislature. That's not because we don't have a hope. The importance for applications on phones, on computers, to especially in the age of AI, to do a better and better job of limiting access for guys that want that. And we integrate that, but we know that a defensive only strategy fails 100% of the time, because addicts are smart. You can hide all the alcohol bottles as far away, but if I want alcohol, you better believe I'll find it. Same thing with pornography. I will go to the end of the earth to get my drug of choice. And it's the most readily available and used form of addiction. And it's one of the most effective substances out there to be able to hook the brain. And so we're interested in teaching guys that, to be able to help them understand that they're not just pleasure-seeking buffoons, but that since a very early age, and then through all of the most important developmental stages of their life, they had an easy button out of pain. And they need to go back. They don't need to go back to all those places, but they need to understand that and realize that that allergy of discomfort, there's now an opportunity to start embracing. We tell guys this all the time in our freedom groups, this is the worst year of your life to have the best year of your life, because you'll learn nothing.
Yep.
You got to go through stuff and learn to go through that stuff in a new way and have new habits at your disposal, new frameworks, new thoughts, new mindsets at your disposal, to be able to endure those things. And then you realize that these are not specific habits, mindsets, tools, that these are generic. What does that mean? It means they're good for all of life.
Yep.
Right? They're good for all of life. That when the next time God gives you something that you never knew that you had the capacity to handle, you realize, oh, that stuff that's in me now wasn't just about getting porn out of my life.
Yeah.
That was about
building my life.
Yeah. I mean, one of our taglines is unleash your inner king. That was about being a king who has the dominion to rule as a good king over my
baptismal identity.
Totally.
Yeah, for sure.
Over the kingdom that God has bestowed
There's
on
an authority.
me.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
Well, I also love like the image I was having when you were saying that, like, you're going to do hard work up front, always. Like you're going to excavate so that you can then have a place to lay the foundation. You're then going to do the hard work of laying the foundation. Then you can start building.
Right.
Right. And like one of the prayers I was brought into kind of early in my deeper conversion. I think it's you who I first heard Nick say that the two most important days in a Catholic's life is the day they're baptized and the day they find out why. It just took me 20 years to find out why. And I think at that deeper conversion level, one of the things on the backside of that was just that willingness to do the hard thing up front. Like I remember just like how willing are you to do the things now that bring you the fruit in the future?
Yeah, pick your damn suffering.
Yes, because it's gonna be on one side or the other.
Yeah,
like your life's gonna be hard.
Totally. Bob
Which
Schutz, one of my mentors, says that all something to the effect of all sin is the result of an unwillingness to suffer.
Yeah.
So why did I just lie? Well, I lied because I believe that to tell the truth is more painful than to lie. And I'm going to take that route. And then that lie will lead to suffering later, and so, a lot of what we're doing in the Freedom Group, especially phase 1, is kind of a neuroscience of redemptive suffering.
Yeah, that's good.
And there's another way. And
instant gratification leads to delayed suffering, but instant suffering, then I get to that gratification point actually quicker.
Certain suffering that leads to life.
Yeah.
And that can be experienced now.
Yeah. Dr. Anna Lemke, who's a neuroscientist who wrote the book Dopamine Nation, says she believes the most profound discovery of neuroscience in its 50-year history is that pleasure and pain are processed in the same center of the brain. And when I choose intense pleasure in the moment, I'm unconsciously choosing pain to follow. That's shame, right, for a guy that acts out sexually. Yeah. Right? That's the neuroscience of shame. Well, it's also the neuroscience of delayed gratification. If I'm willing to choose short-term pain, saying no to myself in a small or big way, I'm choosing for my brain to find ways to give me pleasure. And we help guys learn to allow their brain to find pleasure in reality. Right? So many guys talk about, and I've experienced this, your world, I didn't realize since I was 6 years old using porn regularly from that time, that I experienced life as pretty gray. Yeah. And it wasn't until I stopped and had a sustained period of not using, I started to experience reality as rewarding. Yeah. It's supposed to be rewarding. Yep. The Christian life is supposed to be a lot of freaking fun.
Come on, say it again.
The incarnation, right? Yeah. Reality is always better than fantasy. Yeah. Right? You got to live in it long enough to know that. Right. Like I build fantasies in my life of my fears. So I catastrophize. And then I build fantasies in my life of all these things that aren't actually real. Right. So these are my dreams. These are my fears. I built fantasies around them. But what if I just lived in reality and faced them? Yeah. Like, actually, like I one of the big moments, my wife Nina and I have been married 5 years. I remember like early in marriage, like for the first time, I felt like No, I think I felt whole enough as a man to just look and say, hey, when you said that, I responded in a way that I wanted to make you feel stupid. That was my whole point in making my comeback, is because I felt threatened by what you said. And my response was, self-preservation, self-promotion, they're two sides of the same coin. But this self-preservation thing, I want to stay there before we go on to the other side. I think, we're preserving it. Like, we're so afraid of that crucified Lord who's naked in front of his mom, friends, and everyone, just laid out like, this is exactly who I am. Yeah. Right? Humility, being on our knees before the Lord, nothing more and nothing less.
Yeah. 12-step is the first place that I ever heard this. We're talking about reality, that reality is the greatest healer.
Tell me more.
Showing up fully. It's being aware of your story. The degree to which we're aware of our story allows us, one, to have compassion, self-knowledge, right? And then I'm able to actually become aware of why I do the things that I'm doing, why I'm like in shame, avoiding showing up fully. But often when I can just show up, especially when I'm not feeling it, especially when I'm around people that know me, it's in community and living in reality. Yes, with the triune God, but with others. I mean, if I'm just honest, the last couple of days, I haven't been totally on.
Yeah.
And Joe saw it 2 nights ago. He's like, hey, don't put your mouth tape on yet. I sleep with mouth tape.
Yeah.
He says, don't put your mouth tape on yet. I want to talk to you before you go to bed. And we're 5 people deep in an RV here. It's been a blast. And he goes, how you doing? And I know he's not just asking me how I'm doing.
No, that's right.
And I know he sees me.
Yeah.
I'm like, damn, Joe, I'm okay.
Yeah.
And I forget what I shared. He goes, where do you feel it in your body? Don't do this to me, Joe. This is what we do with our guys.
Yeah, totally.
I know what you're doing, but I'm like, okay, I can go there. And I start to feel it. Okay, living in reality ultimately is living in the present moment. It's how do I show up fully? How do I, because I can be here physically, but not be here.
Of course.
Mentally, emotionally, I'm away from here. But the more I'm aware of my own story, the more I engage my own story, yes, in the past, because I hold my whole story here. And it plays out in reactions and fear and shame coming up. But when I show up fully with others that know me, that know my story, the greatest healing I ever experienced in my life is a longer story, but it was over on the Camino when I walked it with my then girlfriend, now wife.
Camino de Santiago?
Yeah, it was 9 of us. Don't recommend doing it with 9 people where there's not a leader.
Yeah, sure.
But it was wild, and I had the most profound spiritual experience by basically my brokenness coming to light in the face of another person. And actually, it's a whole long story, so I won't dive deep into it, but ultimately it's in this moment that I had this both deeply personal, incarnational experience with another person, but I felt the love of God pour through another person into my heart when I was rejecting, pushing her away. And my addiction actually, without diving into it, my addiction came up fully.
Because that's where God plays, though.
Right.
Like, he's playing in reality.
Right.
He's not playing like
the
the figments of my imagination that create fantasies of myself. Like, that's not who God's working with. He's working with me. Good, bad, in between, my shortcomings. It's funny that you say that. I wonder what you guys think about this, but right before the conference, we have an amazing community at Damascus, and we send a lot of them to Seek every year. And before the Seek conference, one of the leadership team members was talking to me before I came, and she just asked, like, how are you feeling about the conference? I'm like, not super excited. She's like, really? Like that, you come to life there, man. And I was like,
totally. I know.
But like, I used to go to conferences before I knew who I was, and I operated there in a particular way. And I want to be who Brad is now there. And sometimes I'm afraid that who I am now, I when I go into old environments, I'm not as confident as I would desire to be, that I'll in fact be that man there. And it was just an incredible conversation. And effectively, like it prompted me to take that to the Lord, and then stepping in, it's been probably the best Seek I've ever had, because I was beginning to realize, just because of spending time with the Lord and allowing myself to be in the presence so I can actually hear him. Like, the reason he's been working the things in my heart in the dark room isn't so that I could avoid places like this. It's precisely so I could go back into them as the actual version of myself he wanted, Like, that's the good stuff.
That's
like
really
that, like
good.
Men were made for purpose. We're made for a through line. We're not made to arrive. Right. Like, anyway, I wonder what you guys think about that. That was my experience literally just the last 3 days.
Yeah, bringing both of what you guys are saying back to the issue of pornography. So many men, I think the strategy that they deploy in their life on their own are strategies to eliminate it without having to deal with it.
Yeah, tell me more on that.
Well, so if I put an app on my phone and my computer that no longer allows me to access it, well, then I just can't have it.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't become anything different. I didn't become somebody who could sit with the capacity to access it around the corner of this room.
It's an artificial bulwark.
Right, and not need it. Well, that's only goes so good in two directions. One, the next time I need it bad enough that I'm willing to delete the app and go find it.
Yeah. Right. And my accountability partner gets that I used a device that wasn't connected.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Or I find myself in so either in a bad enough situation where I'm triggered enough that I go back to it, or it gets removed. A new device enters my house or whatever. And, I joke, particularly because of the number of the things our family has been through. Our family animal is buffalo. Buffalo runs through the storm because they know the fastest way is to the other side of the storm is
to the snowstorm.
That's right.
Yeah.
You go through.
You can see it in Yellowstone. Those videos.
Right?
Yeah.
Or the old children's story about you come up to a number of different obstacles and I can't go around it. I can't go under it. I can't go over it. We have to go through it.
The only way is through.
That's right.
Let's go.
The only way is through.
Yeah. Jesus proves
the only
that.
way to become a man who doesn't need porn is to go through it.
Yep.
Right? And we use this idea of welcoming, right? Most men have been taught, especially in Christian context, that you get free from porn by fighting or fleeing pornography.
Yeah.
Fighting in
fight or flight immediately.
Yeah. The reason why that doesn't work is because the part of your brain that's been hijacked by the craving for porn, for guys that it's gone to the level of craving, psychological, neurological craving, is that it's the part of your brain that's been hijacked is the fight or flight center of your brain. Well, that's useful if it's a lion in the Serengeti desert because then you'll run.
Yeah.
Or
it's a performance enhancer in that moment.
Right. You'll figure
if I'm in the Amazon and there's an anaconda right there, fight or flight's pretty good.
If I run to my other room, my brain is still with me.
Yeah.
If I run to another room, my brain is still with me, right? If the lion lives within me, and I never learn how to look at it realize actually that might be a kitten and not a lion.
Yeah.
Or that lion is behind a glass wall and I don't need to be afraid of it. I stay fearful. I stay avoidant.
Yeah.
Right? And so I've seen so many guys who their strategy to dealing with pornography is to just avoid things. Can't go there, can't do this, can't do this, can't do this. And so then it becomes this laundry list of avoidance. So you become, what are you doing? You are forced to live a life of avoidance rather than a life of connection. We know that from the plethora of writings and information and studies, et cetera, that the opposite of addiction isn't sobriety. The opposite of addiction is connection.
Yeah.
And that first is connection with myself.
Yeah.
The ability to be, like you were saying about your story of your recent experience this week, to learn how to get back, and what you were saying, to get back to connecting again with me.
Look myself in the eye.
Right. And knowing that is enough.
Yes.
That I'm going to be me.
Yep.
Well, that takes some skill, some tools to be able to, when I'm not, we talk about the idea or concept of shifting your state, right? I mean, Nick and I are both passionate about nutritional health because it's made a big impact in our own personal lives. And there's this idea of you want the cells of your body to be metabolically flexible. What does that mean? To be able to run off sugar and to be able to run off fat. Well, in the standard American diet, most of us just run off sugar the whole simple
time.
Carbs that can be easily converted to sugar. So our cell might go its entire lifetime never knowing how to run off fat. Well, that's the reason why we get fat, because our body never burns fat. We never get it into a fat burning mode. Same thing for our behavior, for our states of being that we find ourselves in. I never learn how to go through a process of being in a bad state and knowing how to get myself to a good state, back to baseline, back to homeostasis is the technical term for it, right? Which goes back to the whole idea of pain and pleasure, how to experience pain and know that my brain is designed by God to get me back to being okay.
Yeah.
If I just let it. And you need tools and strategies. And I think most young people today grow up in a deficit in their church environments and especially in their family environments of being equipped to learn how to being, metabolically flexible, using that analogy, learning how to shift my state because they don't see their parents do it.
Yeah.
Their parents are pissed and they blow up, or their parents are cold.
Yeah.
And that just lasts days or hours, and then all of a sudden they're fine again.
Yeah.
I never learned then how to do that. I never saw reconciliation. I never saw restoration. I just saw the difference in those two things. Yeah. Well, nobody ever taught me.
What was the process?
Then the process of going.
Well, you don't transform, you transfer. Yeah, of course,
right?
Like, because you're going to live out of that thing. Well, the thing that's standing out to me about what you're saying, Joe. Well, there's a lot of things. I think there's a ton of potential topics that we can talk about in that. But at least one of them is that, like, what's true at the micro is true at the macro. Subsidiarity actually proves to be right. So you're talking about at the cellular level.
Yep.
That lives out in my life too.
Right.
Like you can extrapolate out once you get the proper context of it in.
Fractals.
Yeah, exactly. Well, the one thing, but I want to kind of circle back quick out of that lens into what you were saying a little bit, Nick, but I also think it goes to the only way is through concept, but this difference between reaction and response. Like the present man can respond to something that's in front of him. Mm-hmm. So imagine like reaction is like, I've been abused. So when someone even flinches and looks like they're going to swing, I react. Mm-hmm. Response is, I'm present. What's the move? Yeah. Right? Like reaction is, I've memorized the exact way I want to play this chess game. Response is, what move did you just make? Mm-hmm. I think that there's a huge need in the world today to men who don't fall into tribal reaction mode, where I create really simple solutions with a group of people around me. We insulate each other so that we can react to anything that's a threat. Yeah. And we can just stay this way forever. Like let me say this, and then I want to hear about reaction response. If you guys agree with it, disagree, but I've been focusing recently on like, man, the world needs to know, like the Lord couldn't love you more than he does right now. And he loves you way too much to keep you that way. If we lose either side of that coin, we're screwed.
It's always both and.
Like it's always both and. Like there's nothing I'm going to do from this point forward in my life where the Lord's like, you've earned my love more. But because he loves me so much, he has so much more for me in the adventure leading forward. Yep. And when I get those two things right, life's always an adventure, but I'm never living for something. I'm living from something. Like the purpose actually comes from the drive that I was made for impact and things. So anyway, I give that as a frame to kind of come back, that reaction response. Yeah. Obviously we can see it in the way that we have stimuli that leads us to pornography, but leads us to overeating and 1,000 other things too. But what do you guys see in that with the men you work with, even in your own life, that reaction response?
How do we expand that liminal space, the space between cue or trigger and response, the space between my wife sharing that she's frustrated that I didn't take out the trash like I said I would, and my comment to her. How do we expand the space between thought, emotion, action? Mm-hmm. Thoughts create emotions, drive behavior. Yeah. And it happens so automatically. Yep. So how do we slow down, become aware, what am I actually feeling? We teach guys how to feel it, name it, welcome it.
Feel it, name it, welcome it.
Sometimes guys don't even know can we name the emotion? But first, if you can't even name it, can you feel it? Yeah. Where do you feel it in your body? Often in our chest. Mm-hmm. And so how do we, one of the ways we teach guys to just not react, and again, these are generic muscles, as Joe's saying. So the same space I can create between cue and looking at porn is the same brain, the same muscles that I'm responding to my kids in the middle of the night or at dinner table or at the grocery store or whatever it is. And so how do we expand that space? One of the things we're big believers in is the power of the breath. One of the most practical tools to anchor us back to in reality, to anchor us in the present moment, to anchor us in our bodies. Most guys are completely cut off from our bodies, from our emotions, from our heart, and
spiritual component to it too. And Jesus breathes on them and says, receive the Holy Spirit.
Oh my gosh. So much I mean, with the spirit, the pneuma, the spirit, the breath of God. And how do we, where was I going? Slowing down.
Cue and trigger, how breath can come into that, other things, feeling it so we can name it. And
Yep. So much of our days, we're living in fight or flight, threat mode all day long.
On the edge.
And the vast majority is actually perceived threats. I've heard the difference between anxiety and fear is actually right in front of you. It's like, that's actually a tiger. Anxiety thinks, I might see a tiger here soon. Anxiety
it's fear of the unknown.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's unknown. There's an unknown surrounding circumstance.
Right. Yeah, I like those definitions. So anxiety is like fear of what might happen in the future. Fear is actually, it's right here. And so often we're living our days in fight or flight, sympathetic activation. And so what happens is a response to that physically is shallow chest breathing.
Yeah.
I'm shallow. And we're not even aware of it. And
man.
The cool thing about the
so
breath
true for me.
is it's part of your your diaphragm, your muscle that controls your breath is the part of your autonomic nervous system. It's just always doing its thing. Like your heart is just beating without you being aware. You don't have to control it. Praise God.
Something cool about breath is it's happening, but you can also
control
tap into it.
Exactly. You can also slow it down. And so
Same thing with thinking, but keep going.
Exactly.
Because you're thinking whether you want to be or not, but then you can intentionally.
The breath can slow down your thoughts.
Of course.
And you can slow down your heartbeat. And so the breath we teach guys how to do is it gets us out of fight or flight, sympathetic activation, into rest and digest, to expand. So somebody says something to me.
Yeah.
Can I take one long breath, expand the liminal space between my response?
Didn't lose anything in that moment.
Totally.
Gained in the moment.
Create a little bit of silence. How do I want to respond?
That's good.
So those are...
I love that.
A couple thoughts.
Yeah, you said reaction and response. One of the primary places of the brain we talk a whole lot about is the highway that runs in between your appraisal cortex or your prefrontal cortex and your emotional cortex.
Okay.
There's a highway of neurons that run in between these, and the activation in those two places in the brain is on a pendulum. And that's really important because our brain, as God developed humanity, built a reptilian brain on a mammalian brain on a human, or in reverse order, but a human brain in each of those two things, right? And so the prefrontal cortex is our human brain that is communicating with an animal part of our brain, right, which is this emotional cortex. Well, those lower parts of the brain is entirely interested in survival. It's the only safety is the only thing it cares about.
Yeah, sure.
Keep you alive. That's the most important thing that could ever exist, right? When you were talking about perceived threats. These two things are on a pendulum. So when my emotional cortex gets activated, my thinking shuts off. This is why guys experience, or in anxiety, depression, whatever it is, that you're really not thinking.
Interesting.
There's very little thinking happening.
It hasn't even made it to that level yet.
It's feeling that's happening, and I'm being run by feeling, reactivity. Well, why is that useful in many situations? Like we've been talking about, is I need to react.
Because fear of an immediate threat makes sense.
You need to react now, and you can't think about it, because if you think about it, and this is why warriors, MMA fighters, boxers train so much. Why do you train? Because when you are in a ring, that right hook,
good for sport.
You cannot think through that.
Yeah,
you have to be so
basketball,
trained,
football, one-on-one blocking,
the leg position of your opponent and the hip movement of your opponent, that you know a right hook is coming before he ever moves his arm.
Yeah,
that's why you train.
Yep,
and that's not processed mostly up here. That's processed in lower parts of your brain that are designed for reactivity.
Yep,
right, and. So many of us are utterly unaware of how we've been trained to just react to things, just to run on automation for things. And well, the opposite is true. When I start learning how to think and act out of response, intentional response, my thinking brain gets turned on and my emotional cortex. And so this is why we use behavioral tools as foundational elements of our process, because we can talk about story and internal wounds and memory, but that doesn't matter.
And we do.
And we do later on.
Yeah, I get what
It
you're
does
saying.
not matter
Because if you
training a man until you learn how to calm down first.
Yeah, can I paraphrase that? So what I'm hearing is like that intellect and will, where we want to make good choices, where we want to get out of trauma, where we want to get out of old habits and operations. We first have to silence all the alarm bells before we start building towards the offensive, towards that offense, because we're in such a defensive position all the time. We've been getting scored on like crazy.
House is on fire.
So all we're doing is like full out press every moment.
Right.
So, but once we can actually recoup, recalibrate,
then
we can begin building. Because
and every guy wants to play the big game.
Yeah.
I mean, this is what you do in small things. Is how you operate in small things is how you'll operate.
Well, everyone wants
things,
to save the world. No one wants to do the dishes. Right. Do the dishes first, then we can focus on how you can become the sort of person who might change the world. Then you can start doing small things that actually change the world, and then maybe by the end of it, you made an impact that actually did.
So it's a great analogy. We teach guys how to slow down and emotionally regulate with their breath and other simple tools, while they're feeling the tension and the distaste for doing the dishes.
Yeah.
Because that will be immediately applicable to your life the next time craving comes.
This is giving me a whole new, so one of the verses that's kind of core to what we do at Damascus is Romans 12:2. Be not conformed to the ways of the world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind, that metanoia. To receive, perceive, to know what is the will of God, what is good and pleasing and perfect. But this is just giving me a whole different way of understanding that verse a little bit.
Let's get into that too. Another one of the biggest things that we teach guys is the power of reframing, right? Your frame of the way that you think. So much pain that we experience is based on the weakness of our framing. October 10th of 2025, my son was diagnosed with, we found an MRI, a tennis ball size brain tumor. Next day, went in for emergency surgery, 2 weeks of recovery, had another 15-hour surgery, 8 months long, marathon at sprint speed of recovery for a 5-year-old boy. Right. And I'm his dad. So, and I was in every single second of that. I think I took him to all but 2 of those appointments, spending time in the hospital room. I was through it all. Again, back to this is generic, not specific. I realized the gift of my training on how to get free from porn in that 8 months.
Yeah. Tell me more on that. Why is that the case?
Because I talk about reframing. We dread so many things that we have to do in life. All the boring stuff, all the hard conversations, you talking about coming here, all that resistance that's in us to engaging life. And so we feel bad about it because we think poorly about it, right? I don't want to go through that. I don't want to have to deal with this. We're building a business. Like there's so many things in life. I do not want to, right? So that's most guys frame for most things in life. God, I wish I didn't have to do this.
Want a smooth and easy life.
Yeah, I wish I didn't have to go to school today. I wish I didn't have to go to work. Work sucks. Those are the thoughts. And, they say women think about 8,000 thoughts a day. Men think about 3,000 thoughts a day. You talking about thinking all the time.
Yeah, sure.
That checks out in our lived experience, men and women, the difference between men and women. But both men and women, most of those are negative appraisals, negative thoughts. Why? Again, we are designed to
survive,
safety, right? So we, talk about prejudice. Like prejudice is built into us. Well, I need to make a judgment of you. Are you dangerous to me? Are you friend or foe?
Yeah.
Right. I need to figure that out in order for me to stay alive.
Yeah.
Right.
In the high stakes circumstance that was made for.
Right. And I think we have a terrible problem in the church today of not being leaders in developing positive appraisal frameworks.
Yeah.
Of thinking well.
And reframing, getting you free from the one thing now when you're saying, no, keep connecting that for me.
So the first step to do, I start to become aware that I make a lot of negative appraisals. I hate my job. I don't like my family or my vocation or where I'm in. I want to be out of it. I want to be somewhere else. Whatever it is, all your different domains of your life. How do you think about those things? Well, I have to shift from dread and complaining and desire to be out of it to at least being willing to deal with it. I am willing to choose to embrace this right? It's like doing the dishes. I do not want to do the dishes, but you know what? Actually, my thought that I'm going to make intentionally right now is I'm willing to choose to do it. What I found is that I started to do that in my life, that funny enough, in relatively short order, my thinking started to shift from I'm willing to think well about this to I want this.
I want this.
Right?
Yeah.
And my experience of guys and in my own life is most of thinking can be boiled down to I want out of this.
Yep.
To I want this.
Get out of reality.
Yeah.
Versus
You
bring
know
it
how
on.
useful having I want this mindset is as a dad of a son who's going through a really crappy circumstances?
Yeah.
I have to go to the doctor today. I have to do a bunch of stuff I don't want. That's going to be hard.
Yeah.
Be a lot of suffering. I'm going to have to hold him down.
Yeah, right.
While he's kicking and screaming as they put a needle into his body again.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
50, 60, 70th day in a row.
Yeah.
I want this.
Yeah. I just said this in a conversation I had in a different episode, but I can't remember the same, but like, Lord, if you want this, I want it too.
Yeah.
Like that move, even along what you're saying, like I'll take it.
Yeah.
Whatever you have for me.
Yeah.
Like I'll take it. Like it just is connecting so much. It just,
we
we're mind, body, and soul. Like
yeah.
everything you're saying, I'm just, cause I'm working in the spiritual works of mercy all the time,
Totally.
helping guys frame these things.
Yep.
Like the way that you're talking about it from this ground level, which I do think once we've gotten to the point of craving and we're in such like alarm bells everywhere, defensive position, like starting this and then you connecting that to real life.
Yeah.
Like, well, God willing, one of the hardest things you'll ever go through.
Yeah.
It's like, now I get to approach this in an entirely new way.
Is meant to be one of the most rewarding things I ever went through. Like the most moving, like I moved ahead in maturity. My son, my 5-year-old boy, moved ahead in maturity and resilience and capacity in that 8 month. That's what it's designed for.
Yeah.
If I'm willing to choose it.
And I got to spend time with
if
my
I'm
boy.
willing to want it.
And we got to go through it together. Like
Right.
all those frames. Yeah.
As a dad, I got 3 boys at home. He's my oldest, now 6, 4, and newborn, 5-month-old. Like I want my sons to go through hard things and to become resilient. And no dad would sign his kid up for that, to try to give his kid cancer so that he has to deal with that. But I am really freaking grateful.
Well, what was the Father thinking when Jesus went to the cross? Like
Totally. And that's the image I had in January. 6 straight weeks of radiation every day. I had to bring him in to at Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota. We lived down there for 6 weeks in a row away from our family the vast majority of that time. And I had this image as I'm holding my son, restraining him so that he couldn't run from what he had to go through in order to get well, to do what he needed to do, and whispering in his ear, I'm with you. It's going to be okay. I'm not going to leave. I'll be here every step of the way. I think we have this sense of that, the agony of the garden, that Jesus is there begging God for take the chalice, and God's up there looking down on him like, sorry, bud, can't help you.
yeah, I guess you got to.
I don't think so. I think I was allowed to experience exactly the Father's heart for Jesus.
Yeah.
Holding him,
Yeah.
you know, the kind of restraint, the strong restraint that says, I can't.
Yeah.
I can't have the cancer for you. I wish I could, but I can't.
Yeah.
I wish I could snap my fingers and take this from you, but I can't.
Yeah. You guys will love this.
And I will be with you every step of the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You've got me.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
You've got this, and you've got me, and we can get through this together.
And I'm in it with you. Yeah. What I was saying a moment ago, you'll love this because I had a conversation with Pete Burak recently, and I was talking about, are you guys familiar with a guy by the name of Jason Wilson?
No.
He has started a jiu-jitsu academy in inner city Detroit for boys that have a proclivity for gang violence, young men.
Let's go.
6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 years old.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Like you guys should totally get connected with him. And amazing. Just an amazing man. Like, let me share quick. The reason it came to my mind is what you're sharing there. Like, well, first of all, thank you. Like that's the good news. The good news is that when we work on this internal reality that we've been talking about so much, now all of a sudden externally, I get to be the thing that helps the one that I'm entrusted with, my boy, develop that internal piece for as long as I get to. Because you weren't guaranteed an outcome, right? You're not guaranteed an outcome.
Right. Still aren't.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we have to learn how to live in ambiguity and be in control. A lot of people, doctors of every form, want to break it down to statistics and I can heal you and I can get, and many people that run around the world when they get a diagnosis like this looking for the cure, and they spend the rest of their life and then die in pursuit of a cure.
That's right.
And both for my son as well for me is I don't want to just survive this. I don't want him to just survive this. Yeah. That's not the goal.
You don't want to miss the moment.
Yeah.
He's going to die eventually. I don't want to just survive this. And if my only memory of my son is this period of time, I want it to be memories of hard things we went through. And I also want it to be out in the backyard in the sun, throwing the ball around.
Yeah.
Being together with him, living, teaching him how to live.
Yeah.
Even if that's only the 6 years he gets to be on earth or the 100 years he gets to be on earth, that those would be formative memories that shape him to think, act, behave, process reality well.
Yeah.
Right? And me too.
No, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good. Yeah, no, Jason Wilson. So I was talking to Pete about, he wrote a book called Battle Cry, which is really, it's transformed a lot in my life, like reading through it. And there's a video of Jason Wilson online, and I'll show you guys after we record here. It moved me so much. But as you were sharing that with your son, Joe, like Jason, he runs his academy. One of the commitments of the academy is that the boys' fathers have to show up on an ongoing basis.
Wow.
And for a couple sessions, this one boy's father hadn't been showing up. And the boy's father shows up at the next mandatory father session. And Jason looks out, and Jason's a mammoth of a man. Like, he's a professional black belt jiu-jitsu guy, mammoth of a man. He looks at the father and asks him to come out. And he asks the boy to stand up, and like just like the best stance, most polite yes sir answers, like he's doing amazing work with these boys. And so the boy stands, the father comes out, and Jason looks and he's asking the father like why he hasn't been there, and the father's like all of us, he's scared, right? Like all these excuses because I'm inadequate, I'm not enough, and I know it. What do you want me to say? What do you want me to say? He's so scared. He's in that alarm bell. He's in the like, I'm trying to save myself because I feel like I'm dying. And Jason says, here, son, because he calls all the boys sons too, and he has them stand behind Jason. And he looks at the father. He says, I want you to get through me to him. And the father at first looks, makes a decision, goes, tries a rip move, swim move. Jason picks him up and pins him. Gets him up again. Says, I want you to get to him. The father goes, pins. Finally, the father, after he gets pinned, doesn't wait to get back up, elbows, hits Jason in the back, runs, grabs his boy. And Jason stops and he turns around and he has the boy stand across from his dad and he says, like, this is what it's about. And he brings the mom out and he has like a moment with his family, and he has the boy look at his dad and he says, son, I want you to share with your dad how it feels when he's not around. And the son looks back at his dad and he goes, when you're not around, sometimes when I'm at home and playing basketball, I play and act like you're playing with me. And it's just this moment of like everything you're talking about. The only way is through. I want it, whatever the fight has to be, because I was made for a relationship. What's the book of Malachi say? He's the last of the minor prophets, right? The last word spoken 400 years before Jesus. Malachi prophesies. He says, I will return fathers' hearts to sons and sons' hearts back to fathers. Like, how much of this, like, in the BS curse that we buy into is us saying, like, I'm a failure as a son. I'm a failure as a father, and I'll never be. I'm just inadequate, not enough. That's how I'm going to die. And so I'll just live in this defensive mode, and I'll live in this fantasy. So hopefully people don't know what I know, which is that I'm an imposter. I'm a fake, and I'm never really going to make anything. So I'll stack up enough wealth, prestige, dopaminergic effect to shadow that forever. But then when I face it, and you see a video like that, you hear a story like yours, Joe.
Wow. Shifting. I mean, it's every obstacle can become the opportunity. That's the reframe. And there's what I love about
dead ends become doorways.
Exactly. Man, Brad, this is so good. I mean, there's so much truth to so many cliches in our faith, like offer it up. There's so much truth to that, right? But
we write it off.
It's not a cheap process. It can be cheap. Offer it up. How you doing? Oh, we got to be positive, right? Positive appraisal. Angel armies, God's good. He's on the throne. I think sometimes it can be cheap, and we can bypass owning the reality of actually the pain. So this isn't some cheap, like no complaining. We got we have a session on no complaining because it shrinks your hippocampus, creates a narrow vision, doesn't open you up to the opportunities for growth, right? But this isn't toxic positivity. This is very hard. This is very painful. And maybe this is a very real threat. But even this, my God is an amazing economist. And I participate in his economy. And even sin, even evil can be good if I face it, enter into it, and buried within that, pregnant within that is gold. Peterson says, we gotta, if you run from the dragon, it grows.
Yeah.
But even if you
Dragons
run towards
are real
it.
after all.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah,
we've always known it.
Yeah,
we now call it fantasy, but the dragon's more real than the fantasies you create.
Yeah, I'm going to butcher this, but Chesterton says, fairy tales don't teach kids that dragons.
Dragons are real, but the dragons can be slain.
Yeah,
the dragons are real, but the dragons can be slain.
Exactly. It's so good. And so, yeah, and the things that we most need and are looking for are buried in the places that we least want to look. And it's in the suffering, it's in the pain. And this is the reframe, this is the metanoia, to go beyond the way you're thinking and to get a new way of thinking and a new lens. And this is why, hope is so key to the process of freedom. We got to actually feel hope. And actually, hope is an expectation. And I know the final story, and that's not bypassing the current reality, but it's anchored in that final destination.
It's a through line.
That's a through line. That
hope
anchor
doesn't disappoint.
Come on. And that suffering produces character, and character produces hope.
That's it.
And it's through it, and it's living fully in it, and it's opening up to all the pain. Every time. These are generic muscles, and they help us live fully. And so the reframe is every challenge, every threat is an opportunity for certainly growth, but even just, I love the image of that, of just with you and your son and this man and his son, is connection.
It's connection.
It's deep intimacy, deep communion with myself and God, myself and others, myself and creation, reality.
Well, and then the way that you're going to take that, right? And now playing catch with your son isn't taken for granted, let's say. Now all of a sudden I get to be a real man in the world.
Yeah.
I'm not taking things for granted that are gift. Gratitude's on the other side of that.
Right.
And we are starved for gratitude, sincere gratitude. Because if I don't get to the place where I'm actually able to be in reality, I can't be grateful for things. The only thing I'm owed is non-existence. If everything past that point's a gift, then I'm the richest man in the world. It was funny. It was on the day of my wedding. A good priest friend, and you guys know how wedding days go. It's all a blur, but there's a moment that I only remember because my priest friend brings it up to me, and he was the one who said the mass at our wedding, and we're in the back, and it's that cool moment where as the groom you get to go out with the priest, the procession. It's like there's this sacrificial nature that you're getting to take on in such a unique way at that mass. And I'm in the back, and he looks back at me, about to dap me up, because we're always excited together. And I'm just weeping, and he's like, "Are you all right?"
Yeah.
And the way he tells the story is I was expecting you to say, "Yeah, I just love her so much, and I can't wait for my life." And he goes, all that would have been appropriate. But my response was just I'm so glad he saved me. I don't deserve anything today. I don't deserve to stand here, to go out there to a bunch of people that love me, who I've gotten to play a small role in their lives, or they've gotten to play a huge one in mine.
Yeah.
To have this woman who knows all the things that I got to work on.
Yeah.
Who's going to say yes. But that's the good stuff. The reason that I'm so passionate about what you guys are doing is if we free men for that, that's lived reality.
Yeah.
The world will change when men live like that. We know that. We know that.
To say he did save you, but I love what Augustine says, God, something to the effect of, God said, I created you without you, but I will not save you without you. It's full participation.
It's cooperation.
It's 100%. And we got to be active participants in our salvation. It's, I have been saved, I am being saved, and I will fully someday be completely saved. That's the process of salvation, the process of healing, the process of deliverance and liberation.
Amen.
It's in it, and it's all a grace. Even the grace to respond to the grace is grace itself. But
it's not self-deprecating either.
Right.
But it's also not self-aggrandizing. It's just
100%.
reality.
It's right.
The reality is God does not need me.
Right.
He would love my wife better without me, my daughter better without me. He would run Damascus better without me. He would do everything in my life better without me. But he loves me so much that he chooses and wants to do it with me.
Yeah.
Like he doesn't need me, but he wants me so much it looks like he needs me. And that's a pretty good definition for love. Like don't need, want, and want you so much that I'm going to yoke myself. Like that's unbelievable. And it's the good news of the gospel. And if we can start getting men out of those alarm bells, that's why I'm passionate. Let me throw out another frame and let's just wrestle with it together. Cause a lot of the things you guys are talking about, I can track with you, but a lot of it, I haven't known before this conversation, which is awesome, but it connects to so much of my lived experience anecdotally.
Yeah.
Jason Wilson, another frame that he gives that really, if we're talking reframing, just framed everything in my life, is he talks about the man is fully alive when he learns what it's like for the lion and lamb to lay together in him. And like to take that further, the way that I've like wrestled with this is there's nothing virtuous about a rabbit, right? This is a Peterson line. It's just trying not to get killed. There's something virtuous about a lion that knows when to kill and not to. Like Jesus says, I am meek and humble of heart. That word for meekness means to have a sword, know how to use it, but keep it sheathed anyway. The strongest man in a room doesn't have to tell you.
That's right.
Right. The smartest man at the table doesn't have to tell you.
Yeah.
Right. The alpha in the room doesn't have to pound his chest and let you know.
Yeah.
Like that meekness, that power under control.
Nice truck.
Yeah. Like either they, it's just it's in them.
Right.
So that lion, that meekness, and that lamb, that humility, that tenderness, the willingness for my daughter to come run to dad and like receive and look her in the eye and feel with her. Yeah. Right. But this is where I want to get your guys' thoughts is I think as men, the men that I typically work with, and I work with a lot of young adult men, you guys are working in a very particular way, which is super needed. Again, my own experience of my life, but also those of guys around me. I'm always kind of wrestling with there's some men, I think it might be fight or flight, but I would love to hear from you guys. They know the lion, but they become so lion they're calloused, so they don't feel. It's just I'm going to do the hard thing all the time, and I'm not going to think about anything because I'm numbing myself out to everything, and I will run over everything and everyone. Don't stand in my way, like this Uberman, like this. Like I'm doing all these things nth degree, and then on this side, I see when the lamb's taken too far, this soft, like. I don't compete in anything. Like I won't challenge myself in that way because I just know I'll fail, so I won't do it anyway. Yeah. And what I've been really, really preaching is like no permission to be calloused. You don't have any permission, and no permission to be soft. No permission. What we have to find is when the lion and lamb lay together, that's where Jesus is at. Look at the woman at the well, but then look at the flipping of the tables in John 2.
What does the context call for?
He's both.
Right.
He's both. And so if we're going to be fully man, we have to be both. Now, I would love, maybe you guys have a different frame for that. Maybe the way I'm saying that is too comparable in your mind. But like, anyway, that frame is fun to play with. I wonder what you think.
I don't know what I'm thinking until I start talking. So let's start talking. Yeah. I mean, another frame is the masculine and the feminine. Sure. Right. Yeah. The masculine, assertive, engaging, protect, literal frame, picture frame. I mean, the great image is ballroom dancing. You know, the man is the frame, the structure. The masculine, the woman is the beauty, the feminine, whatever was really watching. All immersed in that. And so there's masculine traits. So how do we image God? Even it's interesting that Jesus is the perfect representation of the invisible God. He's the invisible God incarnate, the firstborn of all creation. When you see him, you see the invisible God, but he's not male and a female. That's interesting, isn't it? I'm kind of going off a little bit here, but he does have all the masculine traits and all the feminine traits.
Yep, and it's manifested in a particular way. So the heroic masculinity is the crucifix, heroic femininity is the pietà. Similar, not the same.
I just learned recently, pietà, you know what that word comes from?
No.
Well, it's actually a version of patience. And another translation for love is patient, is love is long suffering. Pietà is, but it comes from the word to suffer.
Yeah, of course.
So suffering and patience and endurance to be in the present. Anyways, that's kind
of Zakar, to remember. When I remember when I remember the goodness of God, I can suffer now with him, to your point. Like woman Nikeva, open to receive.
That's so good.
So that's the pietà.
Yeah.
Jesus is murdered.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Mary's just, I'm open to go through it with him. The sword can pierce my heart. This radical openness.
Yeah. Yeah.
Jesus, heroic masculinity.
Yeah.
Up on the cross. no one takes my life from me.
Yeah. Yeah.
The Father loves me because no one takes my life from me. I lay it down freely.
Yeah.
I'm not humiliated. Humiliation, human, hummus, humility, all the same root from the ground.
Right.
Humility is when I lay down freely, and I'll be a bridge. I'll connect my son with whatever he has to go through. I'll connect my wife with purpose. I'll connect these men with freedom.
Right.
Humiliation is someone forced me to the ground.
Totally.
Because I wasn't yet there. You can't take something from someone that's given everything away. Anyway, no, keep going to this masculine, feminine.
Yeah, there's and it's what's called for right now. The masculine heart, or more of the feminine receptive characteristics of God that are also within me, and I can also continue to grow in. And context is what is called, it calls upon certain things to come up. So it's a dynamic pendulum too. And that's why we have to always come back to homeostasis and to the true virtue, which is in the middle. And when you're like the greatest generation ever, for example, right? They had to operate in, like, let's say, the masculine almost full time. And there's a time to build and a time to tear down, a time to weep and a time to rejoice. There's a time for everything. And there's a time, one of the greatest gifts of the masculine heart actually is to put some walls up. I know what you're feeling, but we have to go this direction. And it's such a beautiful dynamic too. I remember when we were first pregnant with our first child, a lot of fear with number one. It's like, first of all, it's like when you try not to get pregnant, it's like, oh, we're probably pregnant. Oh, I'm terrified we're pregnant. Oh no, we just made out. We're probably pregnant now. And then you try to get pregnant, and then it's like, God, we're probably not pregnant. We're probably not. And then you get pregnant. And then there's a little bit of bleeding. And then we're like, oh shoot, we're kind of terrified. And then Teresa's like in her own head, very in it, and a lot of emotion and a lot. It's almost not real for me yet. At 8, 9, 10 weeks, by faith, I believe that there is a life inside that womb. But I'm very much objective.
Yeah.
And there's a gift to that. Part of me, I remember when we reflected on it later, where I was like, I kind of felt bad that it wasn't as real for me. I wasn't as in the maybe feeling part of it, but I was able to be objective. So back to the metaphor, the image of the analogy of I'm at war, is I know what you're feeling, but we're headed this direction.
But you have to get shot on this beach.
Right. We're going
5 yards
we gotta
further.
Go. That's what that is called for. But the problem is if we stay in, it becomes PTSD, and if the walls are always up, and now if the walls don't ever come down, well, they have to come down, and if they don't come down, then I have needs in there that are going to get met in an illegitimate way.
Yeah.
And that's where addiction comes in, and alcohol and porn and all sorts of drugs. And so we have to put the walls up around the heart, I think, to like go, and then they have to come down as well. And
I think the thing that stood out from what you said, and this might be a little bit of a tangent, but it's what's striking me, is to be capable. I think we need to set a higher standard for ourselves and for men in the church today, what it looks like to be capable, physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually capable.
Yeah.
Like, not only did I physically restrain my son, I also went after doctors.
Yeah,
sure.
I also brought the stack of studies that said you're wrong.
That's so good.
To meetings with doctors and looked them in the face and said you're wrong.
Because you were called to steward something.
Totally.
And I'm going to be
because I care.
The man that I am.
Right,
in this.
right. You're going to have to deal with it.
Protector.
I had doctors tell me, if you're not willing to do this, go somewhere else. And then at the end of the meeting say, you guys are the most well-researched, well-understood parents on this subject I've ever dealt with.
Mm-hmm.
Come on.
Yeah, preparation.
Right?
Yeah.
And so we need to be capable. I also am fully confident that probably everybody won because he was a former college offensive lineman. Every one of those people I could have dispatched in 5 minutes if I had to.
Yeah, because
if the threat rose to the level of requiring physical violence. Of course it didn't, and I only thought about it a few times.
No, it allows you to live in the world differently. I'm catching exactly what you're talking
totally.
about.
It's the dangerous man is the safest man.
Yeah, that's right.
And I mean, what you were saying earlier is like the Jocko Willink shares this story of a guy asking him, like, what happens if a guy comes up to you on the street with your wife and like grabs her arm or something. He's like, I moved to the other side of the street. The guy's like, you're not going to stand up for her? Like, you're not going to get in that guy's face? You're not going to take that guy down? He's like, no.
De-escalation is the first move.
Yeah, like, I know I could in 10 seconds.
Yeah.
Right? The first step of that is to be capable of that.
Yeah.
And I think we live in such a soft world that we become soft.
Yeah. And usually the person that swings first is the most scared. There's this ability to like respond again.
Right.
Like what's required, and then the confidence of I have what is needed for what is required.
Right.
That's capability, right?
Yeah, I think more Christian men would be more confident in their ability to keep their sword sheathed than the adequate size of their sword for the battle they're fighting.
Yes. So that's why I wanted to kind of tap in. I think you guys can sharpen me there. Yeah.
Yeah, we need to increase our capability as much as we need to increase our emotional regulation capacity to keep the sword sheathed.
Good. Yeah.
So if you pull it out and it's an inch long,
yeah. It's a dagger.
Baby knife, because I've never trained
the length
it.
of the other one.
Right. I'm probably I'm in a battle I'm going to lose. And at some point, not to say that physical violence will ever be required in your life, but that kind of strength and capability in intellect.
It is strength under
in
control.
will,
it's not just whatever under control.
And physical strength.
Of course.
Is required, and it's measured in the world of men, right? When you walk into the room, you notice,
of course,
the obese guy,
of course,
the effeminate guy, as much as you notice the guy is like shredded and built.
Yeah.
Right? And those two things can be extremes, and like that guy is the overcompensating. So I'm not saying that the goal that every man in the church must be a chiseled.
I don't hear that being
figure.
What you're saying, but the reality that like what it takes is what I'm I'm willing to do.
Right. One of our core.
Same thing with me. It's like I want to be in better shape in this season of my life. Well, I'm starting. Like we got to do this.
Right.
The mission focused side of my life took so much of it.
Yeah.
That's like wait. Yeah, I'm prioritizing prayer in the morning. Love that. When was the last time I had a regular workout rhythm? Like that's got to happen.
Right.
That's a non-negotiable for me.
Right.
Yeah.
And for men, we should have non-negotiables like that because I want to be capable.
Right.
I want to have what it takes when the circumstance arises that requires a thing.
So one of our core principles is physical strength.
Yeah.
Because I think that matters to the man, and it matters to the world of men. To be physically capable and strong matters.
It's more than it's more than even just the manifestation of it. There's something that it says. There's something about like discipline that it says. There's something about trustworthiness. There's something about like I'll come alongside you. There's something about we can run somewhere together. Yeah. Like that brotherhood can be built around that, right? And the Bible verse that keeps coming to my mind in this conversation is Nehemiah when he's rebuilding the walls. You had been mentioning walls, some Nick, in all this conversation. Nehemiah's rebuilding the walls, and he has all these people like, come down and meet with us, tell us what you're up to. He's like, nope.
No time.
I'm at work.
Yep.
But the thing is, he was confident that what he was doing was what God was calling him to. Right. So again, like if I can lay out that like the process I'm hearing in all this is once I get out of this permanent defensive position, right? And I've silenced those alarm bells. I've become aware of reality. I'm present in it. I can push through the suffering. I can take the enjoyments that come, but not live in them in perpetuity.
Right.
Just like, I'm grateful for that, but I'm also grateful for this because I'm growing here and I'm satisfied here. And boom, I'm living in the present. Well, now all of a sudden I'm equipped to then ask, okay, Lord, what are you calling me to? Now that I'm really present, now I can push forward.
Yeah.
I can push forward to help other men get free. I can push forward to win over the next generation, whatever the purpose is.
Yep. Yeah, I think one of the things that Nick and I, having been in ministry for a long time, one of the things that's important to us to not respond to, but that we feel like there is a call on our lives to be able to invite men into is not the over-spiritualization of faith, that faith is an integrated reality, body, mind, and spirit. Yeah. God's interested in redeeming it all. And for us, imaging and
incarnate. He wouldn't have become incarnate.
Imaging and imitating all of the Christian life in every dimension and domain of my reality, body, mind, and spirit, right? That's our verse at the core of everything we do is 1 Thessalonians 5:23 and 24, where it says, may the God who is whole and holy make you whole and holy, put you together, body, mind, and spirit.
Yes.
If he said it, he'll do it, right? And my personal conviction, maybe I should say this till the end, but my personal conviction that maybe I'll repeat is that most young people grew up in homes that held up holiness as an important value, or at least the whitewashed tomb of holiness. Yeah. Go to church on Sunday, go through the motions, be okay, look okay, white picket fence reality, that's very important. Wholeness, not so important.
Yeah. You can be broken into 1,000 pieces, you can eat make it look good.
Well, practically, you can eat like crap, you can fight all the time, you can get divorced, you can have broken relationships, yada, yada, yada. Terrible emotional manifestations of disintegration, all that stuff. Yeah. That's out of our control, right? It's like we don't. That's not
totally.
That's a different dimension of life than the faith. We really got it. Like, we got to wear a bigger cross. We gotta do all the right stuff that faith has to tell us to do. Right, and it's just in the spirit dimension. It's just in the faith. What fits that in the church, the things of the church, and it's just. I just don't think it's the truth. Yeah. I don't think it's biblical. I don't think that's the reality, and I don't think that is God.
Right, exactly.
And how He created us. And I think people didn't run from faith. The mass exodus of millennials from Catholicism was not because they were running to nothing. I think they were running to wholeness. And that's why there's been this rise of health and wellness, the fastest growing business in America today.
Self-help books are the
Self-help books are the best-selling books. New Age is on the rise. Eastern religions are on the rise. Why? Because they are communicating truths of our reality that God created, that are ultimately ours through the truth faith, about wholeness.
Yeah. Can I add one thing to that?
Yeah.
Wholeness and adventure. They're selling something and once you're whole, there's something to do. And because I think we've asked so little of our people for so long. It's like, do the bare minimum. And everything can disintegrate, do the bare minimum. But it's like, no, wholeness unto impact. Like, Abram, leave the land of your father and mother to a place I will show you. Let's just go have an adventure, dude. We'll get whole. We're going to get whole along the way. Set a through line and let's commit to getting whole along the way. Right. How about that? Because then at the end of your life, you'll be the father of generations.
Right.
You know, like that is huge for me. And again, not to over spiritualize, but what I'm doing is I'm seeing bridges in all that.
Right.
Obviously. Right. Like actually, I was in a conversation with Ryan O'Hara on this show, and Ryan was sharing about how he had this like real breakthrough here at the Seek Conference where he was receiving the Eucharist, and he was thinking about like the farmer who planted that wheat seed had no idea what God was about to do. Mm-hmm. He had no idea that wheat would be harvested, that would be brought into the bread, and that would become the body of Christ that I'm receiving right now. Mm-hmm. And I immediately was like, and in a manger 2,000 years ago, people had no idea that guy is the one that would be meeting up with this wheat that was planted by the farmer, because it's body, mind, soul.
Right.
Like we are a composite.
Totally.
Like I said it earlier, but he would have made us angels if it was just this spiritual thing. You have some thoughts on that?
It's just so good. I mean, you have to have a compelling vision outside of yourself that's drawing you outside of yourself to something. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's JP2 says self-knowledge leads to self-mastery. Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you, Stoicism. That's great.
Yep.
But to what end?
Self-gift, obviously.
Right? Yeah. Or as we say, as Joe already said, like the whole purpose of freedom, the whole purpose is healing and wholeness and holiness, right? The whole purpose isn't just for its own sake. It's to what end? We would say, biblically speaking, we propose that the Bible says to reign as a king.
Yeah.
And to have a domain, because the Father is looking for sons.
The benevolent king, the poured out
one.
The one who serves his people.
Exactly. He's looking for sons to whom he can confer a kingdom and give power.
Yeah.
And that's what he's looking, the eyes of the Lord. 1 Chronicles 16:9, I think. Search the face of the earth, looking for hearts, open hearts that are willing. You know, and so you don't, and again, it starts with getting free. You don't stop something by stopping something. You stop something by starting something.
Yeah.
And so the whole along the way, you got where am I being drawn towards?
Yeah.
Yeah, we know the final destination, but it's got to be real.
Yeah. Well, if you're listening, like if you want to become the sort of like father that can be with his son when he gets a hard diagnosis. Like you were talking about, Joe, if you want to be the sort of father that will fight through whatever obstacle to get to your son who's feeling isolated, then start working on you.
Right. Start training before the game.
Lead you, then you lead the world. Do the dishes, then keep going.
That's right.
He who is faithful in the small things will be given larger things.
Right.
Find a purpose, set your through line, and become the sort of man that can do that. It's like when I'm working with men and they're like, how do I know if this girl's the right one? It's like, wrong question. Become the sort of man who a woman that you would be interested in spending the rest of your life with would be interested in.
Right.
That would be a good step. Right.
Invite her into a mission. I talked to
have an adventure.
Yeah. I don't know why this is coming to me right now, but I'm reminded like women test the boundaries of a man's emotional capacity. Like they want to know what a man is feeling. And most guys wrongly assume that women want men to emote to them all the time.
Right.
That's not the reality. The reality is women test whether they know it or not. They test the boundaries of a man's emotions because they want to figure out, is this guy emotionally absent and completely unavailable?
Can it be a safe space?
Or on the other extreme, is this a guy emotional puddle with no backbone and no capacity?
Right.
Both are dangerous to me.
Right.
Soft, calloused.
Right. And so she tests the boundaries. Hey, share with me.
Right.
Not because she wants to be the only source of emotive sharing. That becomes a massive risk to her, as much as the man who is completely unemotionally capable. I'm thinking of this. The other thing I was thinking is this speed dating event that is happening, I think, today.
You guys had competing stickers above the urinals.
That wasn't our stickers.
Was it not?
Our stickers.
I thought about you the whole time I saw it.
Yeah.
We won't go there, but that was not us.
That's called vandalism in my book.
Sorry, when I looked at the two.
That's okay.
Not saying that I necessarily. Let me also not be the one who's saying that I think it's the right tactic. All I was saying was that I thought I saw those two.
In our case, no publicity is bad publicity.
Yeah,
if somebody accuses us, we can easily deny it. And if somebody thinks it's
you have
us,
plausible deniability.
I'm awesome. More power to us. No, that it's exactly what you just said. Is like you need to be able to have the kind of ability and adventure and capacity to invite somebody into the adventure you're going on.
Yeah, that's right.
You want to come with me.
That's right.
It's not just sitting around like, do you like me?
Yeah, that's right.
What do you think?
Yeah. That's right.
Whether you're chiseled body or out of shape, like, what do you what do you think of me?
Right. Am I the type of guy that you could follow in the flight through?
Right. It's like, what do you want out of your life?
Yeah.
Because this is what I want out of my life.
Yeah, man.
This is what I'm going to build.
Oh, the world's starved for that.
Is that something that intrigues you or interests? You'd have if one guy went there, and every conversation was of that nature, he'd have possible dates lined up. To the end of the room, but. I don't know. I don't have a whole lot of confidence that there may be many guys that are sitting down at that table that will be thinking through that line and will be offering that kind of invitation. Yeah. Because it's not been modeled. They've not been fathered, and it goes back to everything we've been saying. They've not been shown the way of thinking, of framing, of behaving, of expecting of themselves. And so, and this is the case in so many marriages where the woman sets the standard and man hits the bar. And that's really, I think, what it goes back to is we got to start setting the bar for ourselves in the various domains of our life. We need to, in an age of comfort, we need to choose the uncomfortable.
I think that's right.
Intentionally choose the uncomfortable because it's not gonna come for us. Eventually, it'll come for us. Life is still suffering in the world we live in, but there's such an abundance of comfort. Right. That it's Alex Hormozy, a business thinker. I
follow him a bit.
Yeah. I really like his stuff. He says, in a world where shelter and food is practically guaranteed, you are financially free when you decide you are.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah, that's a reframe.
That's an important, most people feel like they're starving for more money.
Yeah.
They don't have enough. I don't think anybody over there, the 20,000 people, myself included, is starving. I'm not starving.
And then it becomes ever evasive.
Yeah.
Then it's always escaping forward on me instead of me taking the reins.
Getting more so that I can feel okay.
Taking the reins.
Versus, there's a business summit here about getting more so that I can bless more. so I can give more, so that I can build domain more, so I can expand the kingdom, so that more people can be blessed by the kingdom, because the king is one who shelters and protects and provides and gives structure and providence. And again, that goes back to the capability conversation. It goes back to the emotional regulation conversation. Mm-hmm. It goes back to the capacity. I got to have capacity to be able to do that. And goes back to what you were saying earlier about the fantasy of all the dreams of, I want to be an entrepreneur and start a business. Well, I hope you're practicing your capacity to suffer well.
Yeah. Yes. Well, that bar you're talking about just keeps coming back to my mind. Like, I'm obviously involved in like big conferences and ministry events a lot, and like how many people that you meet are like, if you ask them, like, would you be willing to lay down your life for the Lord? Like, yeah, I'd die a martyr. Like, but would you wake up at 6 tomorrow morning? Right. Would you wake up at 5 tomorrow? Would you actually take your prayer time? Mm-hmm. Like, what are we talking about? Right. You're going to take an arrow then, but you're not going to take an alarm now. Right. Like that's fantasy. Right. That's not reality. Yep. My reality is I overslept my alarm this morning. In my exam tonight, I'm going to talk about it, and then I'm going to move on to the next day. I'm going to rely on his grace, and I'm going to continue to try to become the man that he's made me to be. Right. That bar thing, I think what happens is, in the name of compassion, we take the high bar and we lower it for someone. No permission to lower the bar, okay? No permission to be callous or soft or lower the bar. The bar remains exactly where it's at, and every time I miss the mark, this is where Catholicism's true. The Lord fills it with his mercy. I miss the bar epically every day. I don't love my wife like I should. I don't love Eliza like I should. I don't steward my temple of my body the way that I should. And day in and day out, I look to the Lord. I say, I'm not lowering the bar and calling it artificial success. I'm leaving it there. Here's my real mark, because that's reality. You fill the gap with mercy and make that gap have to be lesser tomorrow by your grace. Right? Like,
I think there is a dimension. I mean, I think this is a different reality that men struggle with as well, as our again, this goes back to thinking, but our lives have been so defined by the voice of the inner critic that I do think it's important for men to start becoming aware without judgment. And it goes to the examine, like, habit that you talked about. It's like having that is useful. The phrase I tell guys, you have to be paying attention. What did I aim to do today? Did I do what I aimed to do today? And if I didn't, it's okay to respond to yourself. That's okay. I'll try again tomorrow.
Yeah. Saddle back up.
Right? So you need to look. Shame tells us to look away.
Good word, Joe.
And guilt says look.
Yeah. That's why the examination of conscience has always been powerful.
Right. Look.
Yeah.
Look. And
shame leads to condemnation over here.
You can try again tomorrow. Totally. Right. Yeah. So I think those two things are important, because I think we can fall into a trap in that line of thinking where it becomes, okay, that voice of the inner critic is useful. This image comes up often in coaching with guys. I had most vivid in a guy I was working with at a very low level of functioning in his life, and grew up in a very...
Can you define that for me? Low level of functioning.
Plays video games all day. Can't hold a job.
Yep, I'm understanding.
Like anxious, nervous system shut down, manifesting in a variety of ways physically, joint issues he's having, manifesting many different dimensions of his life. He had this image of him as a young boy, about his lament for the lack of progress that he's experienced in his life. I invited him to imagine himself as a young boy, and his older self comes into the room. And in his image, the young boy is in the corner of the room in his kitchen at his childhood house, like in a fetal position in a ball in the corner of that room. And the older version of him comes into the room and takes a whip and just starts beating the younger version of him. That's the inner critic.
Yeah, the judge.
If that's your son, do you think that's going to make your son more effective and better at performing well in the future?
Yeah. It's going to make him flinch.
But that's the way most men treat the parts of them they're not proud of. Their real only strategy is try to
beat out of you what I don't like in me.
Right. No, I would get down to the level of that son in the fetal position.
Yeah.
And I would coach him. Right? It's okay. Right? And we talk. There's so many.
What will we do next time? What's the path forward?
Right. There's so many. You've talked about this before, of like before I correct or guide my child, I have to emotionally regulate them, attune to them. Children have no capacity to attune themselves. They attune
eye contact's been big for me recently. Can I have your eyes?
Eye contact and physical touch being the two ways that a child attunes to their parents, right?
Yeah, that's my
and
experience.
If I'm dysregulated as a parent or the older part of me, what does the child have? They have nothing apart from more dysregulation to attune to, right? And so I help them calm down through the gift of my presence, and then I can coach them in ordering and structuring their behavior next time in a way that's helpful. No, that's not just, I'm far from perfect in that myself personally in terms of the way that I relate to my children or the way that I relate to my inner child in that dimension. But I think it is very useful as a man is attempting to make progress in a domain that's lagging in his life to have that kind of position of you know what? The voice of the inner critic to beating myself into submission in hopes that I'll improve isn't working as a cognitive structure. So I am going to, and I agree with you that compassion generalized over my life, oh, that's okay.
Yeah.
Whatever, that's okay. I'll just, and especially when I'm not forcing myself to look, is generalized compassion isn't super helpful.
Right.
But directed compassion in the thing that I'm choosing to look at is very valuable.
Yeah, see, there's a bar.
It is okay
you
to not hit the bar in this specific thing.
Yeah.
And I am making a plan to be able to do that better tomorrow, and I'm going to try again, that I will not give up, that I'm going to have hope, right? And so I think that's really important because that is the way that we would treat others, but is so often not the way that we treat ourselves, and then we're surprised that we don't make progress, and ends up getting us into the situation where we just stop looking, that we just give in to the shame of, well, I'm, the example you gave about Jason with this guy, well, I'm just not X, Y, and Z. I'm, all these identity statements that we feel,
let's get
I'm just
out of
not
that
dependable.
And
I just can't pray. Whatever it is, I just don't work out. I'll never be healthy. Whatever it is that keeps us there, that's as important to be specifically compassionate about or directed in our compassion in order so that we can start to make incremental progress.
Because if we're not, it's going to come off on those that are closest to us, and it's going to be our kids too, especially. What did you say? Like I blank about you, what I hate about myself.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to beat out of you what I don't like about me.
Yeah, because if we don't do the work, it's gonna come out. Like I cannot give that compassion, that self-compassion, that honest assessment of no, I did something wrong, but that's not who I am. I can't give that to my girl or my boys unless I give that to myself. I'm reminded of the first time there was this moment of Perpetua was probably 2.5. She was doing room time. We were trying to teach her to not poop in her diaper and to go to the toilet. Yeah. So she got a piece of chocolate when she got to do it. And I was home at this time. And so Tua did it. She said, Dad, I went poopy. I gave her a piece of chocolate. She goes back in her room. Teresa comes home, goes in. I think she checks on Tua, checks on her. And she says, Mommy, I went poopy. She goes, oh, great. Did you get a piece of chocolate? And she said, no. And Mom said, oh, Dad didn't give you one? And she goes, no. And she looks over, she thinks she saw a little remnant of chocolate, and I hear it happening. Yeah. And so Teresa comes out and she says, did you give Tua a piece of chocolate? I'm like, I did. Yeah. And in my heart, it's like hurt a little bit. And I'm feeling it. And I walk into the room, and Tua's like down there playing with her blocks or something. And she's excited for her piece of chocolate, her second piece. And Justice incarnate walks into the room. She looks up, and her countenance completely shifts, and she runs to the corner and covers her face. Like this biological experience of shame for kids, for humans. And she hides, and I take her, and I pick her up, and I sit her in my lap, and I said, Tua, look at me. And she's 2.5, so I can pry her hands off her face. But it's like she's not letting go. And I just say, Tua, look at me. And she finally looks at me. And it's that connection. It's that attunement. She is feeling a bunch of stuff. She's feeling shame. Of course. At 2.5. Yeah. She knows she did something wrong. And I said, Tua, first I need you to know I love you. I love you. You're not bad. I just speak some truth to her.
Good.
Do you feel me? And I can tell she hears me, she sees me. And I need you to know that we don't lie. She's like, I know. And it's been powerful because there's been a couple other times where she's like, she's told us she's done something wrong or she messed up, and whether she meant to or not, she's learning that it's not who she is. There is a law, there's right and wrong, but when I don't keep it, whether intentionally or I accidentally did something, I don't have to hide in shame.
Come on.
So how do we keep that? How
How
do we keep that representation of the Father in the house? You know, because it's not, back to what you were saying earlier, it's not the fact that I was always told, if you want your kids to pray, they have to see you praying. I don't think that's it. That's like just a hyper-spiritualization of my kids staying in the church. Well, certainly that, but they need to have an emotionally attuned present father and mother who are with them, especially when they mess up.
Well, and the reason I love that example is because you said, hey, Tua, here's the bar.
Yeah.
We missed it.
Yeah. We missed it.
And I'm with you in it.
Yeah.
Now let's go through it together.
Yeah.
Back to your experience with your son in the hospital. Like, that is what the world is starving for.
Right.
Starving for.
Right.
Like just the other night, I gave an exhortation at a night that we ran here. And afterwards, like the challenge, everybody's like coming up and like just receiving them. It was crazy for them to see, like, oh, you exhorted up there. I'm crying. Like, yeah, I can just stay here with you.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. I'm with you.
Because like everyone's just starved for like, can you challenge me and love me at the same time? Because
Totally.
I don't even know if that's possible. And that's
Totally.
men's abdication of responsibility.
100%.
Like, man, 100%. I feel like the whole time I've been speaking at a decibel level because you guys are getting me fired up, because I think it really matters what you're doing. I think freeing men so that they can become the sort of men the world needs. What are we doing if we're not doing that? Yeah. Let me land on a question I've been landing all these conversations with, because I'd love to hear you guys' thoughts on it. At Damascus, passionate about this generation of the church. That's why we want to have conversations like this. Like, what's the world needing, and how can we be a part of bringing it? You know. And the question I've been landing on is this, and I'll ask both of you: what do you think the Lord wants this generation to know? Mm-hmm. What do you think the Lord wants this generation to know?
Yeah, I'll go first. I think we have a God who is whole and holy, and he wants children that are whole and holy, and he wants a gospel that's whole and holy and in all of its fullness. He wants to put us together, body, mind, and spirit, and he wants to invite a bunch of young people back to the church to live that out, because they're not finding holiness out in the world. They're finding imitations of wholeness, and maybe even some bits and pieces of what wholeness looks like, but we can only deliver the fulfillment of that. And so that's my desire for, as we build our company and everything that we're doing, is to be imitators of that, and first in our personal lives and the guys that we're leading, and that as a church we get closer and closer to that. The elimination of donut Sundays. I forget, I think it was Dr. Daniel Amen, what Christian church he was a part of, worked so hard on his pastor for years and years to get rid of donuts after the service, because it's like you fill people with the Spirit and then you kill their body. What are we doing? And I think it's one tiny example, but I think that is true. And I don't think we have to go to carrots and celery to be able to get that message across or make that stick. Delicious food and nutritious food can still exist under one umbrella, but being able to, everything we talked about, it fits into that realm of wholeness and holiness, integration, living an integrated life, body, mind, and spirit. Is what is going to draw people back, as much as us figuring out how we messed up on the holiness thing and the whitewashed tomb reality, which I see a lot happening in the church, of like, we missed the boat on just, hey, go through the motions, do the things, look good enough, and that's good enough.
And then bludgeon yourself in perpetuity.
Totally. That needs to change, and that I think that is changing. And we have to become whole again. Yeah. We have to learn how to be whole. Body, mind, and spirit. What does that look like physically? What does that look like mentally and emotionally? And that's what we're particularly interested in the Freedom Group, helping men develop and find and discover, discovering in our own lives and sharing with it as God reveals those things and those dimensions to our life. And I think that will open the floodgates to a bunch of people that are finding, again, variations and versions of it, but an incomplete version that leaves them just as empty as their experience of the church and a family life left them, to be able to flood back in. So that's what stirs me up.
Yeah, amen. Thanks, brother.
I agree. I'll riff off something you just said, abdication of responsibility. Because if I look at my life, as I look at the majority of my life up until Jesus of Nazareth broke in, and praise God, I pledged allegiance to him, and I'm still doing it. My life could be viewed as like one who just abdicated responsibility. The sin of Adam, passivity permeating through my life, and fear, and being put in positions of leadership and abdicating because I don't think I'm worth it. This is specifically to men, but it's also to the women out there to support the men. Because my conviction is that society, culture, the church, the world, certainly the family, rises and falls, is built up or is destroyed on the backs of whether or not good men will get in the arena. Get in the arena, number one, of their own lives first, and then in the arena of the sphere that God wants them to get in.
Concentric circles can go out.
100%. And golly, if nature abhors a vacuum, and when good men will not enter in, a vacuum is created and others will step in. The image of one of my favorite movies, the original Lion King, Mufasa's killed. Yeah. And there's Simba, and he comes up to his dad, and the reality is there were greater forces at play, but his own actions his active, willful disobedience played a role in that chaos. And he goes up to his dad, and he realized that his dad's dead, and there's a vacuum now he's gone. And so what happens? He says, help, somebody, anybody. This little boy's looking, somebody, anybody, come and speak into my life. And Scar walks in, right? Others will step in. Counterfeits will step in. I got something to offer you. And so I'm just convicted, and it's personally because it's my own story. And I'm still wanting to. I know there's so much more, and I'm so grateful that there's so much more. And it fires me up that I will be held responsible. Yeah. Like, the bar is here. I've been given a hell of a lot.
Yeah. Judgment is mercy.
Yeah. And it is. They have kissed, and I'm going to meet my maker, and he's going to say, I don't know, probably won't happen like this, but I imagine it will. He's like, Nick, what'd you do with the one life I gave you? Did you steward it well? And not perfectly, but it's grace too that's permeating that call. It's only by grace I can answer the call, and I want it. And I need to surround myself by men that will call me on to that.
Yeah.
That will push back, that will say, hey, I don't think you're right there. That will hold me accountable. And it's not just like, hey, don't do that. Accountability isn't just do that. But you will be held accountable, Nick. There's an account, okay? And you have responsibility, and you have gifts, and you have talents, and quit putting that freaking bushel basket over you, son. Like, you got, so we need to surround ourselves with brothers that are going in the arena of their own lives as well. So I'll stick the landing with, I believe that the church is going to rise and fall on the backs of whether or not men will enter in. And we need you.
Yeah.
We need you.
Let's be whole men that are in the arena, owning and stewarding the lives we've been given. Yeah. That's good stuff. Nick, Joe, thanks for being with me.
Thanks for having us, bro.
Yeah.